We agree with the staff's finding of inadequate parking. However, the parking ratio used is the same as if this were strictly office use. We feel that the parking deficiency has been underestimated. We also agree with staff that the proposal does not satisfy two items of the Steinberg Act found on page 15 of staff's report, and I quote, D, this lack of parking could cause an excessive or burdensome use of the existing infrastructure, and F, the site at full build-out would not provide the minimum number of parking spaces required per code, end quote. We find flaws in the applicant's parking evaluation. First, Nashville, Buffalo, and Atlanta are not of comparable size. Metro Atlanta is 3.5 times larger than Nashville and over 4 times larger than Buffalo. If Atlanta achieves Nashville's per capita membership, there could be over 1,700 members. Second, the counts were done only 4 times in an entire week, none of which was during a weekday when admin offices would be open. Also, in Nashville, 1 count was done on a Sunday at 11 a.m., 1 hour prior to the applicant's stated service time of noon. We find this report with insufficient data and inappropriately sampled. Most important, there is insufficient parking on site for any church's use. The proposed expansion, coupled with the elimination of 30 parking spaces, would leave the property stunningly underparked, even under the applicant's own parking study. In Dunwoody, the highest ratio submitted is 1.36 people per car. In Nashville, it's under 2 per car. And in Buffalo, just over 2 per car. Out of the 12 counts in 3 locations, only 2 showed as many as 2 attendees per car. Yet they are asking to be allowed a parking ratio of 3.5 people per car, which is unsupportable by their own data. That's absurd. This would result in dramatic overflow parking and would require capping attendance at a maximum of 110 people. Relying on off-site parking leases is a weak plan, if not ridiculous. If the leases are lost, the development would still stand. Should the city be burdened with trying to enforce this? In the conditions proposed by the applicant, they would attempt to limit occupancy to 283. Based on their own Dunwoody parking figures, 283 people require a minimum number of 208 parking spaces. About 100 more spaces than are presently available on this site. Even using the Nashville figures, the minimum number of spaces would be 141, still 30 more spaces than they presently have. Reducing the number of spaces to 81 would more than double the overflow and directly impact our neighborhoods. If approved, this action would place an undue burden upon the municipality and the neighbors to attempt to enforce such an occupancy limit. I can't emphasize enough that this is an unsuitable site for increased density and decreased parking for any organization. And undeniably, this constitutes a self-imposed hardship by the applicant. Should the citizens of Sandy Springs be burdened by the applicants? Well, at best, their miscalculation in purchasing this property for this use. Should we be burdened by their mistake? Finally, parking requirements are based on square footage and usage. And why should Sandy Springs give this applicant special and preferential treatment by allowing them to base their parking on occupancy numbers? If approved, the applicant's proposal would guarantee a significant deficiency in parking, setting a dangerous precedent for other applicants wishing to get approvals with inadequate parking. And I respectfully request on behalf of our community that you deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Patty Burns, President of Browntail Condominiums, 5400 Roswell Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia. It is inappropriate to rezone the property to a use that will result in increased traffic and parking problems. The staff's opinion of the zoning impact analysis is incorrect because it suggests that this proposed use will not have an adverse impact on the surrounding property. When looking at the aerial view on the slide of the location, 7/8 of the surrounding area are residential communities and are directly adjacent to the site, which will be adversely affected. Not only office and institutional uses as indicated in the report. The previous conditions that were imposed on this property were to protect the surrounding residential uses by providing a proper transition while also limiting square footage and use based upon available parking. The proposed application would render the property 30% more density developed. This would undoubtedly increase the total traffic entering and leaving the property, therefore becoming excessive and burdensome to the existing infrastructure on the adjacent streets and intersections. This will be true regardless if 4 floors or even 3 floors are used. We believe the traffic department has not calculated the average daily density of cars, approximately. The Sandy Springs traffic engineer has not considered assembly use of the building as it relates to the amount of traffic it could generate. These are his calculations that fail to take into account assembly use. Considering the building is mainly office, classrooms, and assembly spaces, it stands to reason the numbers would be greater than just all office use. In fact, we were amazed that there are no traffic studies and no mention of traffic on the staff report under parking and traffic. As you are aware, this intersection is dangerous. It is overused, convoluted, a 3-way maze with several dangerous corners and limited turn lanes. All of these variables make this intersection a public safety hazard and will be greatly impacted by the density of the applicant's hours of 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days per week. According to several Sandy Spring officials, there are no future plans to change this intersection due to the lack of funds. On the screen, you will notice the breakdown of accidents and injury data from the Georgia Department of Transportation for Roswell Road and Glen Ridge Drive. This data shows a high number of accidents at this intersection. Keep in mind that in 2007 the building was vacant, and this is more than likely the reason the numbers have decreased. And I'd like to add, in 2003, Caldwell Banker was in that building, and the maximum employees they had were 80 to 100. And then they had 103 accidents. So if this rezoning is approved, it will increase the density of traffic, causing a higher accident rate at this poorly designed intersection. Since the purchase by the applicants in November 2005, the property has been allowed to become an eyesore. What does this say for the applicant's lack of commitment to the local community? You have been supplied with photos showing the lack of maintenance of this building for the past 4 years. And this lack of maintenance continues throughout the applicant's buildings in other cities. As taxpayers and homeowners, we take pride in our homes to live the dream of keeping Sandy Springs beautiful. This is exactly why we voted for a new city. To allow this rezoning would definitely devalue our properties. We, the taxpayers, strongly oppose this rezoning. We have submitted 16 homeowners and civic association letters and have that have objected to this rezoning. We have over 500 petitions from the surrounding neighborhoods that will be severely affected. Most letters of objections mention traffic. We respectfully ask for a denial of this rezoning. If not, is the City of Sandy Springs prepared or have plans for the significant increased traffic, parking, and law enforcement? We hope the Planning Commission will step back and take a look at the overall picture of the tremendous growth this organization has planned, which you can learn by visiting their website. Thank you.